Today I'm going to share with you some of my top grant writing tips. Now, there are many and probably more that I could share with you, but these are my top grant writing tips. Hi, my name is Aretha Simons and I'm the founder of Grant Writing School. I'm going to share with you some of my top grant writing tips, so stick around. Number one, match the budget with the goals and objectives. Now, what do I mean by that? Some of you have seen grant proposals and they will say, what are your objectives? Meaning, what do you plan to accomplish? That budget has to make sense. And I always tell people also, when you're doing the budget, write a written explanation of what that money is going to go for. For example, if you need administrative funds to hire a new executive director and you put a budget for salary in there of $55,000, then you explain to hire a new executive director for the year 2022. This is salary for 2022 to 2023. I can't talk today, but we're going to get there. Tip number two, know your demographics. Now, I know you probably know the people you're serving in your community, but some grants, especially the larger grants, they want you to go beyond just your community. Now, when I say community can be defined in many ways, especially when it comes to the grant world. Community could be your community of women that you serve or the community within a 25-mile radius. So you have to find out on the grant proposal what they mean by community, but usually it is your demographics. Let me use the example of you serving children in an after-school program for high school. But sometimes in some cities, there are 5 high schools within a 20-mile radius. So that's what I mean by knowing your demographics. If you're serving just Eastside High School, then you still need to know the demographics of the other school around you, because that's going to make a difference in the type of funding you're going to get, because there's something going over here that you're doing that is not being a need is not being met on this side. So you still need to know the demographics. And there's so much more that goes into the demographics. The next tip is to speak the funder's language. What do I mean by that? When you're reading the RFP, the request for proposal, you need to understand about who you're applying for a grant from so that you can speak their language. As you're reading through the proposal, use some of the same words that they use in their request for proposal in your actual written proposal to them. So it looks like you're talking to each other, you're speaking the same language, but you also have to know a little bit about their mission. Don't just read the RFP, go to their website, read some backgrounds, Google, use Dr. Google for everything. Google and find out some of the things that they've accomplished so that you're in touch with that funder. You're asking that funder to have a relationship with you, to give you money, to give you an investment in your organization or in your community. Then get to know them as well so the relationship can grow and blossom into something beautiful. Another tip is read the RFP. Read the request for proposal and then ask yourself 2 questions. Can I get this grant? Or should I apply for this grant? What do I mean by that? When you're reading the RFP, look at the grant. I know you see all those numbers and you're like, I want that money. But ask yourself, do you have the capacity to fill the requirements of this grant? Because sometimes grants ask more of you than you have the capacity to handle. Does it align with your mission? Does it align with what you do? Is it going to really help you accomplish what you need to accomplish? Or is it going to take you off focus from what you're doing just because you're going to get this money? And then again, as I said, should I apply for this grant? Sometimes the grant will take you hours. It may take you weeks to gather the information. And sometimes the deadline is, 2 weeks from now. And so you have to find out, do you have the time to put into this grant? Because you need to have the time to sit down and really focus on doing these grants. Proofreading, there's so many things that could go wrong, so many errors when you're writing a grant. So you really have to focus on doing this. So if you're ready, then I say go for it. The next tip is to focus on one program for that grant. I was a grant reviewer for many years for the City of Orlando, United Way, and then I was a grant reviewer for the federal government. I've seen grants where people ask for, let me give you an example. If the grant is for computers, for you to purchase computers, don't mention in the grant, oh, and by the way, we need 5 school buses, because if we have these 5 school buses, then we could do this. You're taking them off course, because remember, there are people who are reading, and they're reading multiple grants. So when they're reading, they want to stay focused. While they're reading, they're going to make sure they're focused on, or that your grant proposal was focused on what they asked for. So as they're reading, it's like, okay, check, check, check. But if you take them off path, asking for something else that's not even a part of the grant, then you miss the whole opportunity. So focus on one program if that grant is asking for information for one program. If it's asking for multiple programs, then you can focus on other programs. But that's the main thing I always tell people, to stay focused on the program. Another tip is to list who you collaborate in. Listen, collaboration is so important now. You see, even in the corporate world, all the big companies are merging together. And so collaboration is just as important in the nonprofit world, because you cannot do it alone. And I know you probably feel that sometimes now. You feel like you're alone, but you're not. There may be somebody who is in a 5 or 10 mile radius, or even a 20-mile radius, that's doing something similar to what you're doing. They could be doing exactly what you do. Collaborate, because you still are probably not serving the same people. And even if you are, there's still not enough. That's why there's so many people who are starting nonprofits. And that's why there are so many companies and corporations who are giving to charities. So I tell people to make sure you're collaborating, whether it's with a church, another nonprofit, or for-profit. And then when you collaborate, get some things in writing, get pictures, get documentation, get memorandum of understanding, because all this should be listed on grants that require or that ask who you are collaborating with, who you are partnering with. That's the word they're going to use. They're going to say, who are some of your partners, your community partners, but it's really collaboration. Another tip is to think like a grant maker. I always tell people, have somebody else read your grant, and they may not know anything about what the grant proposal is asking for, but if they're reading it, and they might say, well, yeah, I would fund this. This is incredible. You have to think like a grant maker. You have to think about, if you read your grant proposal, would you fund it? I know in your mind you're saying, hey, I have a great program, it's going to make a difference. But do your words paint a picture for the funder? Would they want to invest in you over and over again? And ask yourself this question: would you fund this grant after you've read it? Don't be biased now. Don't be biased, but really ask yourself that. And my final tip is to say thank you. I've had people who were even denied for grants, but I tell them to write a thank you anyway letter. Thank you for the opportunity to submit this proposal, and I appreciate the time that you took to read this grant. Can you tell me what I could do better? Or do you know of any other organizations who may support what we do? Would you like to have coffee? You know, I've seen people that got denied, and somebody say, hey, well, we know we denied you, but we have another organization that we think might be a good fit. Or there's an organization here, we're just going to pick up the phone and call. I have seen this, and then they've gotten the money. I've seen where somebody who was sending thank you letters every year for 3-4 years in a row, and the 5th year they didn't send a thank you letter. But because they sent the thank you letter prior, that organization called and said, hey, we haven't heard from you. We're going to give you a check anyways. So thank you anyway letters, they really work. And also for people who do get the grant, you do want to say thank you. Now, funders do not want you to spend money on them after they've given you money for your purpose or for your cause. So please stop buying the funder gifts and things like that. That's like a big no-no now. Some of them are just happy with, you know, a banner on their page, and some of them don't even want you to tell people. Please don't tell anybody we gave you money, because then there's going to be more people asking them for money, and they're trying to build a relationship with you, because if they gave you that money, yeah, they like you. They like you a lot. So there's other ways you can ask them, how would you like us to say thank you? You know, if they've given you the grant, and they may say, oh, you don't have to do nothing. Then an email, a photo, putting them a big photo for their wall in their office or something, you know, something small but not expensive. That's just, you know, again, not a good return on their investment when you're buying them trinkets and ink pens or something, you know. So just keep that in mind. So I hope these few tips help you as you're getting ready to go through your grant writing process. I want to challenge you to come to the 5-day Grant Writing Success Challenge. Go to grantwritingschool.org, and I will see you in class.